Hi, Colton, and welcome to the Warriors Raised podcast. It's really an honor to have you on here today as my jiu-jitsu coach and friend. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, so thank you for joining me.
Sweet. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to do this too. It's funny how like immediately as soon as you hit record, dynamic shifts.
Yeah,
It's
I
like, oh
know.
yeah, this is a thing. We're doing an interview.
It's right. It's professional now.
No
No,
promises.
no promises. And honestly, I find that it's like that for the first few minutes, and then everybody relaxes, and it's just like we're talking, and other people are listening in.
Right.
Actually, Andrew asked me if he could listen in live on this, and it didn't work out because he's actually on the other side of the earth sleeping right now. But
Right. 16-hour time difference, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I wanted to start right off the bat. Just you recently had this wrestling win, and I'd love to hear about that. Just as an icebreaker, share with us about that.
Yeah. So recently I competed in the Western Canada Wrestling Club Championships, which is I think it's a bigger name than the tournament actually was, just to state that first, because my mom's been toting around like, my son's the Western Canada champ. And it's
Moms are
awesome. But,
bad.
it's a fancier name than the tournament actually was. It wasn't like a nationals, there wasn't a qualifier. You didn't have to do anything to get into it. Um, but yeah, it was fun. I've been, as you know, running a wrestling class that is just kind of something I do for the community here on Salt Spring Island. I don't charge any of the kids. Um, there used to be a wrestling club out here, and I am not too sure why it stopped running. I've heard stories that I don't really feel like I need to propagate, but yeah, we started off with quite a few kids on the team, and then it dwindled down to just one kid who's training out of the Cowichan Valley Wrestling Club with one of my old coaches, Nick Zubak. He's an amazing coach. When I was finishing high school in Duncan, I was training with him, and I had nothing but positive experiences with him, and his team. And so the one kid who I've been continuing to work with, his name's Zach. Uh, Great kid, great athlete, hard worker, really intense. Um, he's been continually coming and sending me his matches, and I've been doing kind of one-on-one privates with him once a week. And he sent me a message one morning that I woke up to that was like, "Hey, we're hosting this tournament in 2 weeks. Nick, the coach, had asked if you would come and compete for us in the adults division." And for those of you out there that are listening that are not all too familiar with wrestling, which I assume is a lot of you because of what I'm about to say, there's not a lot of wrestling available after high school or university.
Mhm.
So myself, I graduated high school about 11 years ago, and after that, like I didn't go to university for it.
Mhm.
Um, so there's not a whole lot that what is available in terms of practices, unless you're practicing with other high school kids, or you get into these kind of niche clubs that are sparse and here and there, but aren't like all over the place. Especially, out here in BC or in Salt Spring Island, you'd have to live kind of in the city to train at those places, like the Burnaby Mountain Wrestling Club, for example. Um, yeah, so naturally, I was super excited because I haven't competed in a wrestling tournament in 11 years. And yeah, there's a kind of a funny thing that happened. As soon as I found out about it, I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm training hard. I'm in the best shape of my life. I feel like if I go in that today, I'm gonna win this thing. And then an hour later, I just start vomiting. Um, Not like a nerves thing, or just like, oh my God, I'm fucking terribly sick right now. And I was like, I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay. I got to teach tonight. No problem. And as the day wore on, I just started having a fever, and the fever lasted for like 4 days straight. It was super intense. And yeah, all these doubts, like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this thing. I was so excited to do this thing. And luckily, everything was okay. And by the time the day rolled around, which was like 2 weeks later, I had a bit of like a lingering cough going on, but I was able to go in and compete in the tournament and win it. Yeah, that's again, I only had 2 matches. But yeah, it was cool to go in and win.
Yeah, did it give you like, are you looking forward to more wrestling? Did it reignite a love for that? Or is your next competition gonna be jujitsu? How was that to jump back into the world of wrestling?
Yeah. So I've talked to you a bit about this before, but the way wrestling ended for me when I was like 17, 18, 19, this whole like end of high school era, it wasn't like clean and it didn't feel good for me. It was like very messy, and a lot of the way I behaved in the end was borderline disgraceful. Um, so a lot of that was reopened when the opportunity came up again. Um, yeah, yeah, around like grade 12 when I was supposed to graduate the first time, my parents had just split up, and I was pretending that it didn't bother me like a 17-year-old boy would do. And wrestling started becoming a big outlet for anger. Um, yeah, I wasn't dealing with that very well. Like the change of the family dynamic. And I just kind of stopped going to school and just trained. And yeah, I I ended up losing a couple big tournaments. I shouldn't say losing. I fell short of my goals in kind of the big end of the year tournaments for high school wrestlers, which would be the BC provincial championships and the national championships. Um, Getting a silver medal in the BC championships and a bronze medal in the Greco-Roman division of the national championships, which realistically are actually really, you know, admirable accomplishments. However, my mentality on it was just like, you're a fucking loser. You lost when it mattered, so that means you suck. Just like terrible self-talk and no real coaching on how to actually handle that. Um, Other stuff came up around that time. My wrestling coach and my mom started dating, and so that kind of got weird feelings. Again, burying it, not dealing with it, pretending it doesn't bother me. Um, you know, to try to keep that stoic face on, and also like to support my mom.
Yeah.
Um, not add more to what she's probably already dealing with in regards to that. Yeah, and then I was invited to go live with a family in Duncan with a girl that I was dating at the time, and oops, my computer fell.
It's all good.
And yeah, that was where I was introduced to the Cowichan Valley Wrestling Club and got to go train with them. Um, and then yeah, it was just put up by a really kind family, and They helped me finish school. They paid for my room and board, and they fed me, and like overly generous, like treated me very well. On Christmases and birthdays, it was like they treated me like one of their own. Um, and so I went away instead of staying where I lived to deal with my stuff, like my
Mm.
family stuff, and just like
Yeah.
ignored it.
Yeah.
Went away, ferry rides away to live in Duncan and continue training, to realize that I couldn't compete in some of these high level tournaments. That was quite disappointing. I couldn't accept scholarships that would have been available the year before because
Mm.
I hadn't graduated on time or whatever the bureaucratic reasons were for it. So there was just kind of these letdowns after letdowns after letdowns, and um, me continuing to bury and bury and bury emotions, and at that time taking um, antidepressant SSRI medication, which didn't help either.
Mhm.
Um, didn't help me. If there's people out there listening that it's helping, I'm not a doctor. Don't take my medical advice, because the way I stopped doing that is probably a doctor's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Not that I care, but um, yeah. And then finally, bad end to that relationship, kind of disrespectfully, um, stepping away from that family, not keeping contact that had done so much for me. Um, and so the whole like wrestling, the whole family, there's just so much that was just tied up, and like my identity was so interwoven with this particular path that I just all of a sudden the path was closed off. Like imagine going hiking in the woods every day and you have this like it's like your own trail and you see like this group of people that there's always going to be there on this trail with you. And then like all of a sudden you're walking up to that trail and then there's someone had built a wall. And
Mhm.
it was kind of like, my idea of it is that God had just closed this off and was like, you might not be, I don't think you should walk this trail anymore. You really think you want to, but I don't think you need to. You should probably try to look for a new trail or make a new trail.
Mhm.
Find something else for now. And so I did for like
Mhm.
years, for a bit it was like yoga, for a bit it was traveling, I mean, immediately after it was just drugs and partying and sex addiction and just all sorts of debauchery as a
Mhm.
means to, you know, fill this outlet. Like I came home from that experience um, to, oh, now my family dynamic is very different. I left and we were all still living in the same house. And when I moved back, that wasn't the case anymore. Like the home I'd grown up in for 17 years was sold. My dad had moved to like this crack shack duplex in like just like literally on the highway with no sound or heat insulation. We had a neighbor that was like he would like bang on the walls threatening to kill us. He would like abuse his mother and his like special needs little brother. It was like this wild
Oh.
environment, like night and day, to be like came from a good family. That didn't work. I moved to a really nice family that looked out for me. And then I came back and I'm living in this weird environment. There's a new lady living with us all of a sudden. There was like no conversation about it. And the outlet that I had used for the past 6 years to
Mm.
deal with emotions, to get it out, to have an identity other than what was being prescribed to me at home
Mhm.
was just gone. And so I
Yeah.
just started to implode with drugs and partying. So to get back to your question, um, all this time passes, I like 11 years goes by
Mhm.
of trying to figure my shit out, and eventually, you know, finding a mentor, a jujitsu teacher that looks out for me, and encourages me when I go off to travel, do my whole hippie traveling thing, wind up on Salt Spring, and just start teaching jujitsu,
Mhm.
meeting a girl, having kids. Just like it just felt like an entire other timeline I was living in, and then to
Mhm.
receive this invitation back, I'm like, oh yeah, let's go do that. Like, I'm so ready for this right now.
Mhm.
And to go into it, to compete, to win, like it felt like going back in time a bit.
Mhm.
Um, you know, seeing the way people warm up, feeling that like energy of wrestling that's like it's a similar sport to jiu-jitsu in the sense that you're grappling with just different constraints and rule sets, but
Mhm.
like it's just such a different energetic and psychological mentality that these guys have. And to
Mhm.
like be in that again and be like, yeah, I remember that I had some of this. Like, I'm gonna let this out a little bit. And it's in conjunction with my own changes and like new mental tools that I had cultivated through jujitsu
Mhm.
to kind of let both of those things be expressed that day. It was really, really cool. Felt like I learned a lot about myself from that. Um, but
I
do I miss it? Do I
yeah.
want to go back to it? No. No. By the time I was done, I was like, that was great. That was cool. I'm happy I did that. But like to get back to that analogy about the trail that was blocked off, it was like God removed the boulder in the path. And I walked along and I saw all the old people and they're all fat and out of shape, but they're still walking the same trail. And I was like, oh, wow, this is cool to be here again. But this new trail I made is way fucking cooler. It took a long time to carve out this part of the forest, but like this is actually the one I want to keep exploring.
Yeah. It's so
I'm
cool.
happy you guys are still here exploring this, but this is where my heart is right now.
Yeah. I love that. So I'm curious, just I feel like for our listeners, I would love to hear what changed or like got you out of that phase of like partying and debauchery and all like what happened after that? Because there's like a gap there that I want to fill.
Right, right. Because lots of people are probably in that. Um, lots of things. I don't think I can like point to any one big thing.
Mhm.
One thing I learned about myself and I recognized once I started jujitsu, because at the beginning I thought like, oh, it's jujitsu, or oh, it's this teammate, or this coach that is helping me to kind of get out of that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I started jujitsu and I was just really committed to getting good at this. And my friends would be like, "Oh, let's go out and get fucked up, bro. I got a bag and I got a case." And just be like,
Mhm.
"I got morning practice with my coach, John, who's gonna beat the shit out of me if I'm hungover. Um,
Yes.
like I'm gonna get my ass kicked no matter what. I just think it's gonna be better if I'm not feeling like a bag of dicks in the morning."
Yeah.
Um, so it was just originally, oh, I want to get good at this. And then as soon as the opportunity to compete showed up, I was like, oh, I'm going to compete and I'm just going to, I know how to prepare for competitions from all the years of wrestling. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to get ready. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to win. Winning was still really important to me back then. My first jujitsu competition, augmented with a lot of wrestling experience and tournament experience. I went into my white belt competition, won the um, my gi weight division in white belt, no gi weight division in white belt, and the gi open weight division. So I got 3 gold medals that first day, first competition. Again, augmented
Yeah. There's
heavily with wrestling.
yeah.
Okay, it's still grappling skill, so
Mhm.
take that with a grain of salt.
There has to
Um,
be a special category for all you like white belt jujitsu people who just did, 6 years of wrestling or whatever, but it's cool.
I think it's called sandbagger.
Sandbagger, that's the term.
Yeah. Um, so what I noticed is after that competition finished, I just kind of devolved back into some party habits. Um, and I couldn't quite figure it out. So I just kept signing up for competitions without really understanding what was happening. And I think it was just commitment. I'm committed to something of a higher nature. Therefore, I must let go that which is of a lower nature. Sacrifice. Like I was like making sacred that part of me I was giving up on the altar. Um, but then it got to kind of like a certain point where, I mean, looking back at it now, I can tell that it was just like something inside me that was missing, or some part of me I wasn't able to accept or love in myself. I mean, looking back at it now, it's an immense amount of shit
Mhm.
that was never dealt with. Like, it's not like that burying my problems started and ended with that one time I just explained. Like,
Mhm.
that was a mechanism I had must have developed as a child, and it probably saved my life as a child.
Mhm.
But it, you know, it's not like it's just like a blip in time. It was like my life, how I dealt with things. Um, and it just kind of got to this point where I was like, I'd always dreamed about going traveling. I'd watched all these shows and read all these books of like just like the wandering samurai. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh man, that's so beautiful. I want to be that, just like this wandering warrior. And so like about a year into jujitsu training, I had left to go traveling, and I had met a girl that I had went traveling with, and went to all these yoga ashrams, um, little retreats and things. Yeah, she was really into yoga, and I was not quite totally secure in myself, so I was like making her interests my interests
Mhm.
for a long time, and convincing myself that I really liked those things.
Mhm.
And it was like kind of I was stepping away from things that I liked. And I don't ever recommend anybody does that, but in doing that, I was able to open myself up to new ideas, new practices, new philosophies that without doing that, I never would have. So if I were you know, to recommend a better way for people to do that, it would just be, just be open. You don't need to try to
Mhm.
be something you're not to try to win somebody else's love and attention.
Yeah,
Because ultimately that ended up blowing up.
for
But
sure.
thankfully that blew up um, you know, while I was at Salt Spring, when I had like officially kind of moved here and landed.
Yeah.
And I was living at this, I was living at this commune. It was a intentional community.
Mhm.
Um, Again, there's lots of stories, lots of reputations about that place, rather funny ones.
Mhm.
Um, I think I can say it now because the owner, he's writing a book about it called "Oops, I Started a Cult." So I let your imaginations just kind of go wild from there.
Yeah.
Um, However, part of living there was a really cool practice that we all had to participate in called forum. That's right, had to participate. And that was kind of just like a sharing circle where you stood up, you got in the middle. It was like Gestalt based therapy, but no one was really certified to be doing any sort of therapy. But you would get up into a circle and you would just share whatever was real and alive. And some of the stuff that comes out is crazy. And
Mhm.
you're like just basically social suicide once a week, and
Yeah.
met with compassion, love, from everybody around you. And once you're done sharing, everybody can get in and share their own reflection of what they saw. Like, oh, I saw a man screaming about his mom, but really I saw a boy that was sad and missed her, and like
Mhm.
whatever the story is for people. And it doesn't necessarily mean what they're saying is true or not. And you just kind of let it land and see what,
Mhm.
hey, maybe that felt real. Oh, that person's kind of a fucking idiot. Actually, I don't think they really saw me there, but it's just about leaving feeling like that stuff you're holding is maybe out of you. You've made a little more room inside yourself, and um, you feel like validated or acknowledged and witnessed in what it is you're going through. So I think that was kind of a big part. I think, you know, committing to a healthier lifestyle of just like, and like educating myself a bit on like, oh, I didn't know what seed oils were, or I didn't know what, um, I didn't know what intention really meant, or I didn't know that they're spraying shit in the air, or that there's fucking chemicals in the tap water, just like over time, just kind of getting out of that that system started to really um see the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it was just like slowly over time, just incorporating little practices. Just the same way that like we get good at jujitsu is, or any practice is just building a mountain with layers of paint. There you go, painter reference.
Yes.
Um, one day at a time, you just add that other layer until, you've got this big mountain
Mhm.
of change. I've heard this really good quote back when I was probably like 18. It was, success isn't a big rah-rah speech. It's not this loud, like, today I'm changing my life and I'm gonna be the fucking world champion and I'm gonna fuck it. It's this quiet thing that nobody sees. It's quiet decisions that nobody ever gets to be a part of. It's just between you, yourself, God, whatever. Um, yeah. So it was just little decisions. And I think um, when it really just like locked in, getting
Mhm.
out of it, because I still liked partying and I still had proclivities to debauchery.
Mhm.
Um, but really, it was just like we found out, me and my fiance found out that our son was going to be born
Mhm.
4 years ago. That was like everything is changing. Everything must change. Like the boy is dying. The inner
Mhm.
boy is must die so that I can become the most effective man possible to support this family, to support my future wife, to support my future children.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And so and again, like that wasn't easy. It wasn't like it wasn't a rah-rah speech. It was, you know, I thought I was ready. I felt like the most ready a person could be, naively.
Mhm.
And like, it's not like I was loaded. It's not like I had a bunch of money, but just like
Mhm.
emotionally and mentally and spiritually, I was like, yeah, I got this. And then
Mhm.
you know, the baby cries for the first time at 3 in the morning. You're like, I never sleep again. And they're just grumpy all the time and every little thing. Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm an effective I would have been the most effective father if I could sleep, but I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I wasn't ready. And for those of you that think you are, you're probably not too.
That's great. So
I say
encouraging.
that with love. I say that with love. You got
Yeah.
this. You got to keep pushing through the hardship, but
Well,
you
and
know,
what does it mean to be ready, right? Like we can indefinitely
mm,
put off things that we don't think we're ready for. And there is that aspect. And even like your invitation to go compete in wrestling and have, 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks is a good amount of time, but
not
still,
when you're sitting around dying of a fever the whole fucking time.
no, definitely not. I'd love to hear if you want to share. I'd love to hear your like more about how you started into jujitsu and
Mm.
specifically your relationship with your coach, John. Like I've heard some of the stories, but yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that. If
The
that's cool.
enigma.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so after I had moved back I was born and raised in Maple Ridge,
Mhm.
just outside of Vancouver, for maybe international people that might be listening that aren't familiar with the Lower Mainland. Um,
Basically a hood. No, just kidding. I'm not super familiar with Maple
I
Ridge.
wouldn't say that. I mean, it has its ups and downs. It's beautiful, beautiful
Mhm.
nature. but it's just kind of like a cookie cutter town. It's like built on a highway.
Mm.
Everything kind of expands off of the highway and then out into the mountains. Um, so yeah, I grew up there and I moved back there after graduating in Vancouver Island. And I I went through some stints of like employment and unemployment. Um, yeah, things were going weird for me. I was welding. I lived in Alberta for a little bit. Um, just trying to figure out like what I was gonna do with my life, what I
Mm.
wanted to do, and I was just getting a lot of kind of bad advice from well-intentioned, well-meaning family members, you know. I don't hold anything against them. It was just kind of like you need to stop fucking around. All your dreams, you're not gonna accomplish that shit.
Mm.
You need to get a trade. Trades are safe. Why don't you weld like your grandpa and his dad and everybody fucking else did? It just kind of was like heartbreaking, and I was like, I guess this is just life. And
Mm.
um, then I got like roped into some like pyramid scheme for a little while as well, and I was like, yeah, buy the shitty orange juice and join my fucking marketing team. I own a business, but I don't. I'm just a pawn.
Mm.
Um, Albeit there were some really valuable lessons that I learned from that about like, uh, positive mindset,
Yeah.
um, manifesting, law of attraction, things like this, however real they may or may not be, it felt better in that mindset than it did with anything else I had
Mm.
previously been operating with.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I moved back, went through all this weird stuff, and I started just helping my stepdad out. He wasn't my stepdad then. Actually, I think it was a day or two ago. It was my mom and stepdad's anniversary. My old wrestling coach from high
Your old
school.
coach who
Yeah,
became your dad.
yeah, that's right. Bill
Yeah.
McRae. Shout out. Um, he, yeah, he was running the high school wrestling team, and I asked if I could, come wrestle around with his athletes just to kind of stay active. And um, he had the full sway of the rest or the weight room at his place at the school, so I would just get to go work out for free,
Mhm.
um, help with the wrestling, and then I would go help at the competitions, help him coach as well.
Mhm.
And while I was at one of the competitions, I ran into this guy that I had known a little bit throughout my wrestling career. He's this tall, shaved head, big red beard, and like super intense eyes that just like pierce your soul. There are no lies that get told in the face
Mhm.
of this man. I had originally met him when I was like 15, and we were away at like a Kamloops wrestling tournament. And I was in a room with one of the older guys, and this other guy walks in the room and he's just like peering around, and they seemed to know each other. And he's just like looked at me, and there was no conversation. And I was like, man, that guy looks like he knows how to beat the fuck out of people. I like terrified. I was 15. He was probably like 25. He's like 10 years older.
Mhm.
I wasn't big either, when I
Mhm.
was 15. A few years go by. I'm warming up for a big wrestling tournament, and I'm just like over by these bleachers, like, ooh, ooh, okay, getting ready. Oh yeah, get in the zone, get in the zone. And like behind me, out of the shadows, this like dude in a black hood, like looms out of nowhere like a ninja and just like comes over to me. He's like, hey bro, let's get warmed up. And I was like, okay, like this is the dude from the hotel. Like it's like okay, whatever. And we just start pummeling, like, for underhooks back and forth. And he just starts getting really competitive, and he goes so hard and like shoulder strikes me and gives me a black eye before I'm about to go in. He's like, "Yeah, you're ready," and just like back into the shadows. And um, after that, I was like, "What the fuck? Like, what? Why did this guy do this to me?" Um, but after that, every match, every wrestling tournament, he was always watching.
Mm.
For that last high school year. And I remember so vividly in my semifinal match at the BC Championships, I was going against this guy that I had gone against like every tournament. I'd win. Next tournament, he'd win. Next tournament, I'd win. Next tournament, he'd win. And it was just like this back and forth. And like this was the decisive moment. Like the winner of this match was going to go against the undefeated kid that was ranked fourth in the world for that BC championship title. And I'm like down a couple points in the last minute of the last round of the semifinal match, and this kid snatches a single on me, and he's trying to like finish it. He's trying to run me out of bounds. He's trying to lift it. He was definitely like physically, athletically stronger than me. Like he could lift more. He would,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, I'm like, I feel like I'm breaking a little bit mentally in this moment. I'm getting a bit emotional. And then I just hear this the loudest voice. It's in a stadium. Everybody's screaming. This is a big thing for two big teams. And then I just hear this like this booming voice. Just like I can't even do it justice, but he's just like, "Colton, he's tired and you're not." And it was just like fire moved through me. And while I'm getting single legged and he's trying to lift to double up on it, I jumped over him, kicked out, and took the guy down and won the match with it was like a takedown or a pin or something. Like, I don't remember the outcome
Mm.
specifics. I just remember how I felt and how something changed from this person I didn't know. And so years later, I'm at this wrestling tournament, confused about life, and I had actually started doing some jujitsu with some of the guys I partied with. Like we would get into trouble at the parties that we would go to, and we'd pick fights. And some of these guys were kickboxers, and some of them were jujitsu guys, and they were all training out of West Coast Jiu-Jitsu in Maple Ridge.
Mhm.
And so I started training at West Coast for like I don't know, less than a month before I before I got into like a little scrap with this blue belt guy that had like tattoos on his head, but we were just supposed to flow roll to warm up. And this guy puts me into like some type of front choke. I remember like I just kind of like went into it because I just wrestling is just lead with the head so much. And he puts me in this front choke, and like we were already kind of heating up a little too much for a flow roll, and like grinding foreheads. Um Yeah, he's like putting fingers under my jaw and in my collarbone and pulling me under my ribs, and it just like it was nasty quick, and I was like, all right, I can get nasty too, bitch. And like he started putting me into like this, front choke, and I start, trying to rip out of it. He closes his guard. He he like trapped both my arms and then just smothered my mouth so I couldn't. It was like the weirdest position. And I was
Mhm.
just like, oh my God, this guy's trying to fucking put me to sleep. And I just went full white belt spaz and double legged him, like standing while he was on me, and slammed him, and it broke. And then, you know, I was yelling at him. He was yelling at me. Coaches were yelling at me. Everybody was like, you can't fucking slam people. Get the fuck out of here. And it's just like it was just kind of sour. So again, like my relationship with grappling was like sour. Or like I'm missing out or I'm doing something wrong or
Mhm.
yeah. Just it was just like a weird thing that happened and I probably didn't react as gracefully as I could have. But at the same time, my mentality at that point was like, what am I gonna do? Like he's trying to put me to sleep. I can't even say tap.
Yeah.
Um, so I, completely panicked.
Mhm.
And so I had this like now this bitter taste of jujitsu. I tried it, I was liking it. Um, but I run into John, the guy who was cheering for me at those wrestling tournaments, at a
Mhm.
wrestling tournament that I'm helping out coach. And again, he's just sitting there like with a hood on, and there's like all his students from one of the schools he was helping out at around him. And he just like calls me over. He's like, "Hey, Colton, come here, man." And I was like, "Oh man, so good to see you. It's been a long time." Um, he had helped me prepare for nationals later that in my last year of wrestling. He had, helped with fundraising and stuff and kind of sponsored me to go to the nationals.
Mhm.
Um, so I had in between, I had developed a little bit of a relationship with him, but I hadn't seen much of him since. And he was like, "What are you doing, man?" Like just kind of poking to see where I was at with training and if I still was getting after it. And I ended up kind of sharing the story about training at West Coast, and um, he was like, that sounds like it sucks, you know, that sounds like a shitty experience. And then he was just like, you think you wanna try again? Like it sounds like those guys didn't have what you were looking for. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing it. He's like, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't just come to me originally for jujitsu training. And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I didn't know. I'm going through it. And so he just asked about like my work situation, what's life like? And I was like, I don't have any money really. I just lost this job. You know, I'm, I'm I can't really afford to pay for anything training related right now. I would really love to. And he was just like, listen, bro, I pull my weight where I train. And if it means enough to you, you come and train, but you come and train every day
Mhm. Yeah.
and you don't worry about a thing. You just show up and you pay with hard work. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that. And he's like, great.
Mhm.
First class is on Tuesday. See you on Tuesday. And I was like, yeah, sure. And like there was like the hesitance in my voice or like the non-committed nature I was still operating with was still there. And it's just like he could sense it. And he was like holding his hand out to kind of go for like a handshake.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll be there on Tuesday. And like just as our hands are like about to touch, he was like, stop. I want you to check in with yourself. Are you a man of your word? And I was just like my entire life flashing before my eyes of like how absolutely not a man of my word I had been up until that point, like
Mhm.
lying, cheating, stealing, fucking like non-integral as just overall as a human being.
Mhm.
Um, and it was just like an opportunity to change that story right there,
Mhm.
and I was just like, yeah, I am a man of my word. It took me a sec to like just drop in and just decide in that moment that I was going to change and I was
Mhm.
going to commit to that promise that I was making in that moment. And I shook his hand and he just like squeezed it and got like all like intensified with me again and was like, I'll see you Tuesday, boy. And you know, the journey of being humbled every day for, you know, the white belt journey began. Yeah,
John, like absolutely a godsend, this character in your life. I love hearing stories
absolutely.
and just, I mean, someday I'm gonna get to ask him what led him to seek you out like that at those competitions. And, like he must have seen something and been like, that guy right there. That's my theory. Anyways.
You know, what's interesting is I can validate a little bit of that because like me and my stepdad, we talk and sometimes I'll be visiting my mom out in the mainland and he'll tell me stories sometimes like, when I talk about John, my relationship to him, and he'll be like, he used to come up to me at the wrestling tournaments. This is like I didn't know who he was,
Mm-hmm.
but he would come up to my coach and be like, that guy, he's got that thing. He's got heart. That's that thing you can't teach. And then
Mm-hmm.
my stepdad would be like, he wasn't my stepdad then, so don't worry. But he was like, he'd be like, I think you got it wrong. Look at all these other guys out here that are clearly winning everything. He's not winning everything. I think you got it wrong. I don't know what you see, but I don't think you got it right. And he just, yeah, he believed in me before he knew me as a person. He just saw me on the mats and he just like always had this like, I got to get this guy in jiu-jitsu. I got to get this guy on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he invested in me. And yeah, every day that I'm training or I'm doing jiu-jitsu or I'm designing practices or um, you know, every time I meet a kid that doesn't have a lot of opportunities or somebody who's broke, I'm trying to just pay it back the same way he paid it to me. I'm trying to live up to that potential he saw in me
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as it relates to jujitsu and coaching and just showing up as like a positive male in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I think that's been one of my favorite parts of like both being your student and then also training with you and observing the evolution of Salt Spring Island Jiu-Jitsu since I've been a part of it, has been also watching the relationship that you have with the teenage or the young bucks coming in. And like I know, like I can tell I'll come in and I'll be like, I know who was partying as a mom. I have that like sixth sense, and I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and a part of me is like, what are you doing, dude? Like you missed 3 practices this week. Like, there's my own annoyance, frustration, but and also just like, what could possibly be better than jujitsu? And I understand, they're in that phase of life and their levels of dedication are here and there. But having observed that relationship, I wanted to ask you, like, what is your, you're a dad, you're a soon to be husband, um, you compete yourself, you run this school on Salt Spring, or gym on Salt Spring, and then you're a coach to these, well, all of like different levels. What's the most exciting part for you in being a coach? Like it's a lot of different balls to juggle. And yeah.
What's the most exciting part?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So much of starting the school here was just continuing my own training.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Hannah, that's cute, honey. You made a cake? Go see mama, okay? Daughter, interruption. One sec. I'm just gonna shut the door.
It's all good. birthday cake for Kaleo?
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's excited.
no doubt.
Uh, so much of my starting teaching here
Mhm.
just emerged from just rolling around with a bunch of hippies in a barn loft.
Mhm.
And then them just being like, all right, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Why are you kicking the shit out of us? And I was just like, okay, I'll show you some stuff. I'll teach you my shitty arm bars. Um, teach you my shitty close guard. Um, uh, so it was just about continuing and progressing, my own experience with jujitsu, and that ultimately needs training partners.
Mhm.
Um, so in order to develop myself, I need effective training partners and an effective program. Um, and I had neither.
Mhm.
I just had some friends that, were sick of getting choked by me, that wanted to, give some back. And that was all you really need to work with, is just someone with some motivation, someone with some fire, someone with some intention. Um, yeah. So what's the most rewarding thing has changed in the 7 years since I've started the the team here? Yeah. I mean, at first it was just little, just what I mean, I guess it's always been about improvement, you know?
Mhm.
Just seeing people like when they walk in versus how things are looking in a month, how things are looking in a year, and not like compared to anybody else, but just relative to their own potential
Mhm.
as an individual. Like, when I'll use Gord as an example.
Yeah.
Like when Gord started, man, it was just like I could just pressure him, just some side control pressure. It would cause a tap. Um, and now he's like one of my most dangerous roles. Like if he'll shred my legs if I am irresponsible with him in any way. Even if I am responsible, he's got so many tricks. Um, you know, I think, yeah, it's just improvement. That's what I think is the most satisfying thing as a coach. I don't care if people ever go to a competition. Obviously, I get more to work with and I can see more of that improvement, or I can see more areas that we can work on together to practice and to create more improvement. Um, but yeah, it's as simple as just seeing people grow, seeing people change, seeing people that walk in scared,
Mhm.
seeing people that are um like 100% uh uncoordinated. Like
Mhm.
there's many people on the team that never did anything competitive. Salt Spring hippies,
Mhm.
like people that avoid competition, people that avoid like combat, or like like what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Violence.
spiritual bypassers. To
Mm.
see people like that come onto the mats and just try something hard
Mm.
and then stick with it, and then just like that little bit just get better, and all of a sudden, like, a person that was like a bag in the wind that you could just like blow and they fall over.
Mm.
That is so satisfying to see when like they can escape a bad position, or even better, years down the road, when like all of a sudden they're like strangling someone.
Mhm.
Like when I yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's that for me. I think that's just what it's about. Just seeing people improve, and to see people excited about improving. And like we all face these like bumps and these plateaus and these like frustrations. There's so much of that at the beginning, but then when you get good for a while and you forget
Mhm.
what that felt like, and then it comes up like later in the journey, you're just like, oh man, you see them get over it again. you know,
Mhm.
just push through the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that like thing that you would often say at the end of class, like that we shout out together, like iron sharpens iron.
yeah.
And I think, like for me, one of my the things that I've enjoyed the most is like, yeah, experiencing my own improvement, but watching a group of people improve together, where we're all like, you have those training partners where you're kind of like this, or they're always Gord, for example, is always just like a little bit better than me. Like he's always like, better luck next time, and like all the shit talking that goes on and all of that. But there's that element of just um committing to something together. And I mean, I don't know that there are many other experiences like that we have in our human experience right now, where it's like the harder I go, the better it is for you. Like the better
Hmm.
we both get. Like I love that, the intensity of that, and seeing that improvement that's not only on the mats, but also just like how people carry themselves throughout their lives, like outside of jujitsu as well, having that
Hmm.
daily, very real, humbling, um, zero bypassing is like you cannot bypass anything in jiu-jitsu. It's very real, and I love that about it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The whole concept of like rising tides, lifting all ships.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then seeing people like go away, come back, bring new things, or like bring different things, like watching the team grow over the last few years, and
Hmm.
people coming in from other gyms, and coming to visit as well. And just I love like the constant feedback that you would receive of people who've trained at like gyms all over Canada or all around the world, and just being like, there's something really special about this team that you've put
Mm.
together. That that's another thing I love observing, is like the the magnetism of like groups of people who want to train jujitsu together, or I would imagine it's similar with other martial arts, like that magnetism of like um yeah, but just because I've been to a few different jujitsu gyms and I've experienced different gym culture, and there's something, I guess, really sacred about that in my mind. But
Hmm.
um I wanted to ask you what you're excited for next in terms of competing or fighting or developing the team. Like what's the
Yeah.
on the horizon?
So currently, I am very excited about, um, well, there's a few things. So the first thing is I am planning to compete at the Nogi World Championships in the Masters 1 brown belt division at the end of the summer. Um, I was actually a little
In Vegas?
disappointed. What's that?
Sorry, where is that one?
Las Vegas.
It isn't the one in Vegas, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
I think it should be in Vegas. I mean, they haven't posted the registration for it yet. They
Okay.
posted the gi one. I had a conversation with my coach and I was kind of waffling. I realistically can only pull off one of them this year. And my coach was like, "Well, which one do you have the edge in?" And I was like, "Nogi for sure." He's like, "Why is this even a question?" And so I'm just like, "Yeah, I'll do that one." I was a little disappointed to find out that there's no heel hooks allowed in um, the Masters divisions. Um, so like 18 to 29, go for it if you're brown or black belt. But then once you're 30 and above, I'm 29 right now, and in May I turned 30. So
Damn.
literally, I'm just like missing out on that.
Oh,
Um, so they have to defend old man knees, and I guess I qualify as old man knees.
I'm sorry for laughing. Uh,
That's that's life.
I imagine there'll be many tournaments where you are pulled to the other bracket. I can't remember what it's called, not
Yeah,
masters.
yeah.
Adult, yeah.
The adult
Mhm.
division. Yeah.
Adult division.
So that's something I'm really looking forward to.
Mhm.
Um, I'm also to get ready for that. I've kind of changed the training program since January. Um, I was already kind of employing a little more of it, but more of like a constraints-led approach to teaching. I know there's probably a few jiu-jitsu people out there that are like, yeah, and there's another section of people out there that are like, um, and it's yeah, it's interesting. Um, but yeah, kind of going with this more hyper specific scenario way of training to force skills to emerge. And I was very skeptical and hesitant about trying it and
Mhm,
just like not teaching specifics anymore.
mhm,
Um, and I was kind of like hard to make my mind up about it. And I just, realized that I'm gonna have to just try it to form an intelligent opinion on it myself. Just, try get the feedback from what the experience is creating for myself and for the athletes, and
mhm,
then reassess. And I have, in my own experience of just trying it, I have noticed the people that are attending my classes regularly
mhm,
are improving at a rate that they were not.
mhm,
And I see it in myself too. Um, just overall skill development is happening, and yeah, I'm just really excited about it. Some people call it like ecological dynamics or whatever. I'm not going to get too much into the science of it. I read the books, I've listened to the podcast, but out of fear of just sounding like a shitty knockoff of like Greg Souders or Rob Cole or, one of these more intelligent people that's practiced with it for, 10 years, like Greg has, or like I'm still in testing stages. I'm still
mhm,
figuring it out. But what I'm finding so far is nothing but net positive. Um, so if anybody out there is kind of hesitant about trying it, just try a little bit.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, that's the reason I bring that up. I'm just excited about it because
mhm,
it's creating much more of a how do I explain this? Like I'm way more invested into the class design, like the
mhm,
design of practice and what it is I want people to get good at. And
mhm,
it requires a lot more like puzzling to kind of figure it out. Instead of being a problem solver, I'm just taking a role of a problem setter.
mhm,
I create the problem and you have to figure it out your way. And actually last night, super cool. Um, Colleen on the team,
mhm,
she's been super inspired about body lock passing since I taught it like last August.
mhm,
Um, and you know, just hasn't the ability to actually complete the pass has been not working. And so last night she just kind of tried something mid roll, and it was nothing that was in any of the body lock instructionals that I've seen, but it was
mhm,
just this way of switching the hips that was just unique to her way of moving that solved a problem she was having with just shelving the leg.
mhm.
And then I tried it because I was like, whoa, what did you do? How the fuck did you body lock past me? Um,
Yeah.
and I tried it and I was like, oh, actually, this solves this other problem about creating a good angle to step over the leg. So it was,
So her move worked for you too? Like what she discovered worked for you too?
yeah, in a different way.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, if you go back to teaching moves, I imagine it'll be called the Colleen, this particular way of passing. If she made up a new move. But yeah, I love that about the ecological approach where it's like rather than you trying to teach your body a specific way of doing something, you're given this like you say problem that you need to solve, and then your own body find, because we're all built so differently, we already have ways that we naturally move or don't. And then I mean lately, I mean I'm still so beginner with all the like anything below the knee, like attacking the feet. And often I'll be in a like tangled up with someone and I don't know in that moment who is winning. And so I
Mm,
used to think about it. I'd be like, wait, should I be defending or attacking? And then I was like, just attack. Like, so now I'm suddenly getting things that I don't know if it's a real submission or I don't know the names of it, but I'm like, why not? Right. And again, that's, I think from the ecological approach, it opens up all these um, potential pathways of moving in new ways like
right.
that.
Definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
like the quote that I'm kind of going off of is searching is learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't you ever have someone who's trying to tell you something? They're like trying to teach you. Like you might have shown up to a jujitsu class and me or someone else is like they're telling you the fucking whole story of the Gracies. And you
Yes.
like if you're not interested, you're not learning any of it.
No.
But if you wanted to I don't know, for example, like learn how to make a certain type of cake.
Mm-hmm.
Your efforts of searching for that are way more likely to yield the answer than if you didn't have the interest and someone was just like, yeah, fucking flour and sugar. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, so putting yourself into the environment, the idea why it's called ecological. And again, like I am not a scientist and I haven't
Mm-hmm.
written the papers. I've just read the stuff and apply it in the best way uh, that can figure out to
Mm-hmm.
create an effective training environment for my students to develop better skills at a faster rate than they would otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just the information is in the environment. Like behavior emerges. You put an organism, that's you, into an environment, that's jujitsu. The information is there, and the behavior is of completing whatever the task is will emerge as necessary.
Yeah.
That's oversimplifying like decades of study, but I yeah, I don't know. I'm convinced right now, and that could
Yeah.
change.
Well, I love, I mean, it sounds like it's very much something that will evolve. Like it at the seminar that I went to a couple of weeks ago, Andy Varela did one like it was an hour and a half class, and he started off by watching everybody roll. So it was like grab a partner,
Mm,
do 3 rounds, and then from watching us, I think it was about 100 people. I'm not great at remembering numbers like that, but it was a good crowd. From watching us roll, he then decided what to teach. And I was,
right.
how cool is that that he, has that level of confidence as a facilitator, teacher, or whatever. Um, and also that we got to start off like that. It was a really neat seminar. But I think that's because like I have learned technique that's been taught to me that's like this, do this step, this step, this step. And I'm like, the technique works if you work the technique, but then somebody will come along and simplify it and just be like, just try to make this happen, or like, and suddenly you discover a new way of moving that's going to be more natural to you. It's actually a really rewarding experience too. A
Hmm.
little bit, I think some of the ecological classes too can be like overwhelming for people where they're like, what? Like, just tell me how to do this. It's like, you will find your own way. It
Yeah,
will be,
I mean, I think a lot of people just like having answers just given to them. Like, what's the answer? Like, dude, this is the
yeah.
test. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't school where you're given the answer first and then tested. Real life is often you're tested and then it's up to you to kind of learn the lesson from the test, find your own answer.
Yeah.
Um, and that can be overwhelming. I know there's one person on the team that um likes things like a checklist,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, how do I know that I'm getting better if I don't know what I know?
Mm-hmm.
And, like breaking it down a little more simply could just be like, are you good at escaping from
Mm-hmm.
bad positions? Can you defend late stage submissions? Um, can you control people when you're on top? or are they
Mhm.
just getting out? Like, ask yourself these, like, these questions. And like, can you get to submission positions? Can you submit people? Do you have submissions from every position? Okay, now start answering these questions against the lower belts.
Mhm.
Okay, blue, purple, that shouldn't be much of an issue.
Mhm.
Maybe blue, depending on the size, gender, all that shit.
Mhm.
Um, could be tough against other white belts, blue belts against some bigger white belts. But like purple, brown, black shouldn't be an issue too much against white belts. Now try
Mhm.
that against blue belts. Now try that against purple. Oh, you're running into snags, escaping from the back against some of these purple belts. Okay, well now let's focus there.
Mhm.
Let's or even if you have these areas that you just like you get submitted in a competition, or you're losing people in this one little niche area because you
Mhm.
never practice it. um like you get an arm drag and you pull them through and you're able to keep control of the arm and you cup the hip on the other side, but they always get away there.
Mhm.
Okay, well that's an issue. You can't
Mhm.
complete it if you can't control it. So let's just take a 2 to 5 minute round once a week here, and now we're going to just work this position. Now you have a lot more ability to, one, control it. Two, if you add more goals and task focuses, put their hands on the mat. Okay, well now you're very confident that when you get to this position, you can control them for a little bit longer, and you can get their hands to the mat, which makes it more difficult for them to defend you. And now you have this weaponized little area, and you're playing like the way I'm really noticing things are changing for myself as I'm rolling, as
Mhm.
it relates to rolling lately, is I'm all the little micro tasks that I'm used to performing. It's way easier for my brain, at least, to focus on winning the little games as the games change.
Mhm.
Like takedown or start standing. Okay, that's the first kind of big area. Um, Win the grips. I'm going to start by winning the wrist position. I'm going to start by winning that inside position, or catching and connecting to somebody's arm, or catching and connecting their leg. I'm trying to, attack, as it's quoted by the man Greg Souders, is attack the periphery to gain access to center of mass. Then
Mhm.
from there, I'm trying to put the hands down. I'm trying to put their hips down. So
Mhm.
it's just like, okay, I'm playing that game. It's not like I'm trying to, like, okay, I'm gonna arm drag. Oh, the arm drag didn't work. Let's try a head snap. Oh, the head snap didn't work. Let's try a knee pick. And it's less move spamming and more just like reacting and playing these games. Dan, he explained it as, it becomes a conversation. The
Mhm.
movement, the interaction we're having becomes more conversational with our bodies, and less like, I'm pulling a sentence out of a hat and being like, hello, how are you? And he pulls one out that's like, my name's Fred. Like,
Yeah, totally.
instead it's like yeah. And
Yeah.
like in the same way, like I can dominate a conversation. I can manipulate the conversation.
Mhm.
Um, to get the effect from the other person I want. I can set you up with two options. You only have, what do you like? Do you like cheese or do you like bread? And you're like, oh, what the fuck? I only have two options. Like I can do that conversationally. And
Mhm.
when my mind is in this new, not maybe not new, but this different approach to playing the greater game of jujitsu, I can
Mhm.
do those things.
Yeah, I think that's also like how, well, I imagine that certain people, depending on how you learn, like somebody like me, the ecological approach is likely going to be really good in terms of how my brain works, because when I'm watching a coach show a long series, I'm just holding on for dear life. Like I'm just like, please remember at least part of this, when it's like, okay, now go train with your partner. Like I find that
Right.
really challenging to remember. It's gotten better, absolutely. Part of it was just like relaxing and not stressing out about needing to remember all those steps.
Right.
But also, I was thinking about this the other day because I rolled with somebody. I think he's been to like 6 jujitsu classes total. I had him in my guard, and he reached down and just, I don't even remember the name of that choke, but I had him in my guard. He reached down, choked me, and I tapped. Because in my head, I was like, you can't attack me. Like, I'm in the dominant position. Whereas he was just going on, he wasn't thinking about that, right? Like, and I'm not suggesting that this is a good way to train jujitsu. Like, obviously, getting to the dominant position before you try a submission is good. But what it showed me in that moment was like, there's this like rawness that when it gets too intellectual for me, I start to miss out on. Whereas if I'm like, just like, if it's simplified of like, put their hands on the mat, or like get your chest to their back, like it's just simplified, and then that's where I'm going to discover like new radical ways of moving, or maybe more natural ways of moving too, that aren't like, oh, the arm drag has to be the left hand and then the right hand at the bicep. Like,
Right.
you know, my trick is like, I'm going for the lat. Like, anyways, it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
There's more than one way to get to the top of the mountain, as Miyamoto
Yeah.
Musashi said. You know, it like, yeah, and some people they want to, you know, they want the specifics. And I'm not like an absolutist. So
Yeah.
I'm not like, no. You know, if someone's really not getting it, I know that like there's certain ecological coaches or constraints, like coaches that really are heavy into this, and they're like, I never ever give specifics. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, I got a trick. I got a
Yeah.
couple tricks. I've been doing this for a while. Like
Yeah.
I'll give you something. I'll throw you a bone and then go try it again. Try to add that in. And if it doesn't work, you still have to figure out your own way. Like
Mm-hmm.
like there's like everything I'm doing is by feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I can explain that the best I can, but you still have to translate that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is like, don't get hung up on that. You just got to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Conceptual learning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my computer's low on battery here.
Okay. How low are you? How low are you? You have a
It's been going down for a bit here. Um, 10% left. I have 11 minutes of battery. It's claiming.
okay. That's perfect. That's like we were planning to wrap it up anyway, so it's gonna be, we can wrap things up. I wanted to say something about ecological approach, but I forgot. Oh, just yeah, like I honestly, like for me as an individual, having both, I really love, like having experienced both, and like I like that where it's like, yeah, today we're gonna like break it down and get, because I find there's just an overlap. Like some of the leg stuff I've been learning, the first time it was taught to me, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm not going to get this. It's not going to become part of my game. It's too complicated. And then suddenly I'm like doing it. And sometimes I'm getting to that position in a very creative way that involves a lot of flexibility or
Right.
whatever I have. And so there is that, like I actually really am enjoying having different teachers who have, some have very strategic, technical, like step by step process, and then others with like
Right.
ecological approach. Like it's all making, it's all working together in some way.
Yeah, I would say the most important specifics, especially when you're teaching like submissions, I mean, really anything, is what's called invariance, or like the non-negotiable features. Um, like if I want to complete a takedown,
Mm-hmm.
it's non-negotiable. There's no way to take the guy down if I can't get his center of mass to move over his posts.
Mm-hmm.
If that does not happen, there is no takedown. If he's just sturdy and his center of mass is like built in and he's posted out, and if I can't get that over his base, he doesn't fall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, every submission, every, kind of move that we're trying to do, it will have things that are non-negotiable to make it
Mm-hmm.
work. Um, and those features change. So that definitely needs to be taught specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. But hey, I still watch, like I'll still find something that catches my eye on YouTube, and I'll be like, "Oh, what's this guy doing? It would reverse De La Hiva to false reap and ending
Mm-hmm.
up in 411." Yo. But the thing is, like, I'm not gonna dead drill that. I'm not gonna rep that out and convince myself that somehow that equates to the skill of actually being able to do it. I'm just gonna put myself in a scenario, maybe starting in like a open guard situation, and I'm gonna just, ask my partner, okay, just try to pass or just try to stand up, just, constrain the environment, try
Mhm.
to break my connections to you. Don't let me connect. And me, I'm gonna try to sweep you. And in my head, I'm gonna go for this thing that I saw,
Mhm.
you know? That
Yeah.
would be more like how I would teach a technique.
Mhm.
Um, just try to get it going live. Because just drilling it by the old kind of sense of it, where it's static repetition with no resistance,
Mhm.
as far as I can tell, and as far as like research on this type of training is gone, is it doesn't really account for actual skill acquisition,
Yeah.
which is really all I want to do. I want to get good at stuff. And
Yeah.
so watching things, being inspired by things, super important. Yeah. Um, you know, and
Yeah.
just trying to employ it in a live scenario. I heard some guy um, say that like you need to even define what live means when you do live rounds. And
Mhm.
um, he's like, I need two things. It needs to be unscripted and um, I forget the other word. Such a dummy. Um, uncooperative.
Uh,
So you,
yeah.
you can't be like letting people do stuff.
Yeah.
There has to be like, real resistance for you to figure it out. Otherwise, it's just not representative of what the actual goal of the game is, and
Yeah.
it's competitive.
So I wanted to ask you, maybe we could do this as like a to wrap up for today. If you want to share, like going back to the very beginning, um, the moment that you decided to start training martial arts.
Hmm.
This is like going way back in time, perhaps, but
Yeah. Interesting question. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, back in my day, no, when I was a kid, I I watched a lot of TV. My my mom was going to school. She went back to school in like her 30s, and my dad was working a lot to cover a lot of the bills and expenses. He worked really, really hard. Um, and he worked a lot. And so when he would come home, he just, you know, he would take time for himself.
Mhm.
Um, he like, he'd paint these models. It was like therapeutic for him. It was like his peace time.
Yeah.
Um, and me and my brother, we were just like, my mom would study, my dad would, do his hobbies, and we would entertain ourselves. Don't get me wrong, like our parents played with us. This isn't a sob story.
Mhm.
Um, but we spent a lot of time watching shows, and we really loved like cartoons with lots of like fighting, like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, and
Mhm.
just these like martial arts shows, and we just like on the edge of our seat, like kick the shit out of him, like um, and just like this whole like overcoming adversity thing was like really ingrained because of that stuff. And also like, my dad, he was a hockey coach, and my mom, she went to college to play sports as well. She was a basketball player. So both my parents were athletes, so they were also very much like always drilling into our heads, like, yeah, you got to do hard things, and you gotta get over it because everything's fucking hard and life isn't fair. And just seeing my mom going back to school, just doing a hard thing every day, and seeing my dad working all the time, doing a hard thing every day, it was just kind of like, yeah, like we're gonna have to do that, and
Mhm.
I'm just gonna put it off as long as I can. Um, I always thought I was going to play basketball.
Mm.
And then I started high school in grade 8 and I was 4'11" and 82 pounds.
Whoa.
And walked over to the kiosks on that first day of school where they're like showing all the different sports and teams. And I looked at those basketball players that were like 6'9" and I was like, yeah, I'm doing something else, I think. Um, and I think that one of the wrestlers noticed me and just noticed me looking bummed, looking at the basketball players like, oh. And he came over and I was standing there with one of my friends that I had a lot of beef with. And he was like, hey, you want to beat up your friends right now? And I was like, are you for real? Of course. And he's like, get over here. And he like pulls us over to the wrestling mats. And he's like, I was like, what do I do? And he's like, put his ass on the mat, bro. And just started double legging all these kids in my class. And I was just like feeling good and feeling confident. And like me and my brother would fight a lot, like brothers do. And I would get into all these little tiffs and scraps and, just like a kind of like a scrappy little kid.
Mhm.
Again, burying emotions.
Yeah.
And that's how it came out. And like, I was like fidgety and I was always told like, you just don't touch people.
Mhm.
Don't touch people. And now I get to put my hands on people and I'm like moving them around and like I get to, be a bit dominant with people and I get to be the little guy, but somehow I'm ending up putting these guys that are bigger than me down. It was just like some of that spirit
Mhm.
that was in me that like I don't know how to say it, just like that 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 inner fire, even though it was in the body of like a really little guy,
Mhm.
got to kind of come out. And so it wasn't martial arts. I remember watching those cartoons as a kid though and being like, I want to be a fighter when I grow up. And my mom would be like, no, no. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. She doesn't like it. I want to be that more. Like
Yeah.
I want to kick people in the head. Like, just and so it wasn't like, I don't know, when I started wrestling, I was just like, I just love doing this. After
Mm.
that moment that I was taking my friends down, the coach was like, or not the coach, one of the guys on the team was like, are you going to join wrestling? Yeah, you're going to join wrestling. He's like, here's the sign up sheet and the pen. And I was like kind of at a loss. Like, what do I write this on? And he turns around and he flexed his back and I wrote on his back and it still kind of sucked, but I just thought that was so cool. I was like, man,
Yeah.
that guy's fucking jacked. Like, that
Yeah.
must be from wrestling. And I yeah, I just couldn't wait like 6 months until it started. And I was just like every day. And like
Mhm.
nobody could tell me who the coach was or where his office was. And I was just like, when does this fucking thing start? Has it started? Did I miss it? And then finally it started and I was like, I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm going every tournament, every practice. Can I get more practices?
Mm.
Um, and so I just ran with the wrestling and it was just a sport. It was never like fighting. I just kept watching stuff that involved fighting. I watched, got into UFC a little
Mhm.
bit and yeah, started seeing more jujitsu. I remember I think I remember a moment that things kind of got intense for me. I got jumped one time. I was I was on my way to go apply for a job at McDonald's. I had just picked up my social insurance number from the Canada office in like kind of a shittier part of the neighborhood. And these three dudes just kind of approached me and they're like, "Hey man, nice sunglasses." And I was like really naive. Like I was like, "Oh yeah, thanks." They're like, "Can I try them on?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool, sure, just give them back. Hey, give them back. Hey." And then one of them like fucking grabbed me and like I don't know, I imagine it was a knife, put something like pointy at me and was just like, empty your fucking pockets right now. And I just remember feeling so little and so
Mhm.
helpless. And I remember like walking home and just being like, I am never letting something like this happen to me again. Just like, 14, tears streaming down my face, and I'm gonna get good at wrestling. And I remember like it was so weird. I didn't really even know anything about jujitsu. I had seen maybe one of the Gracie commercials, like late night come on, or like Henner and Huron's like Gracie Combatives thing. And I just remember being like, I'm gonna do jujitsu and I'm gonna like,
Mhm.
just having this real emotional, kind of like pathetic moment on the like walking this way home after just getting all my shit taken from me. Um, yeah. So that was kind of like wrapped in there, but it was never martial arts. It was just sports. It was just sport. And but the desire to be that like wandering martial artist was always in there, just from like this like romanticizing it in TV shows and stories and books and movies and
Yes.
all that shit. And then the opportunity just arose. And it was so cool that the teacher I had was a guy who really kind of embodied that like warrior spirit. He wasn't just like a sport jujitsu coach that was like, hey, today we're gonna do seated guard and you're not gonna learn takedowns. He was like, today we're gonna go to we're gonna do class. It's gonna be hard. Everyone's gonna vomit at the end of class. Like he wasn't saying this, but that was just the reality of like how
Mhm.
hard his classes were.
Yeah.
Um, and at the end, he'd be like, "Okay, guys, we're gonna go jump into Gold Creek, which is like glacier runoff in the mountains." And this was back when Wim Hof had like just given his first Joe Rogan interview
Mhm.
about the, like cold water exposure, and everybody was still like, cold water? You're gonna die of shock. And like no real there hadn't been a whole like big body of study and research on the benefits of it like there is today. So it was still like this dude's crazy. He's making us swim in cold water and he's doing it like a samurai.
Mhm.
Just like wading into the cold water and swimming across this river and coming out and just like watching him reheat on the other side only to swim back and just completely unfazed. And we're all like in into our knees and we're like, this sucks, man. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Um, so it was really cool to have a teacher that was
Mhm.
like, he was that storybook martial artist,
Mhm.
to really make it feel like, oh, that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
Like you think of martial arts, you don't really think of like dudes rolling around in pajamas on the ground.
Mhm.
Um, but like a lot of the stuff that aesthetically looks like martial arts is like it's missing the spirit. And
Yeah.
just like the spirit he brought to our team
Mhm.
and the way he would inspire, you
Mhm.
know, like breathe that into us
Mhm.
so that we could carry that flame. It was like he
Mhm.
fanned it. And like, like the quote, like I don't know how it goes. It's something about like the Buddha saying that it only takes one tiny flame to light 1,000 candles. It was like that's what was happening with
Yeah.
all of them.
Totally. I love that distinction because yeah, I have seen and I've seen people come in who train at gyms where it's kind of more like a business, it's like a
Hmm.
sport, but it's not there isn't that warrior mindset and
Hmm.
um it's very, very different. Like they're two completely different worlds in my mind or in my experience.
Right.
I know that we're like running out of time. You have a birthday party to prepare for. Someone special is turning 4,
My
a young
little man.
yeah, I'm excited to see him grow. I have one last question for you, and that is if you could have like all the like support in terms of getting ready, training, whatever that you needed, um, who would you fight if you could fight anyone in the world right now?
Oh my God. There's so many really good guys out there, and I don't really know all their weights.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. What a question.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even considered that. I mean, I expect that it would be hairy and I would might not win, but I think I'd have a lot of fun rolling, not even competing. I don't know. Maybe just rolling with um I don't know. I really respect Mika Galvao. I love his style. He's just like talking about like adapting, being dynamic, like as the situations change, like so good. Um, yeah, he's good everywhere.
Mhm.
It would be cool just to get like a look of that, just get a feel, just
Mhm.
put some hands on that situation and like, you know,
Mhm.
listeners, by no means do I equate my skill level to Mika Galvao. I have no accomplishments of that level. He's one of the best ever. Um, this is all just respect and just a desire to like, wow, what would that be like to compete with that? He's actually doing a seminar at Bibiano's gym in Langley in May.
Oh my God.
Him,
You got-
his dad, who's his coach, and Diogo Reis, who's one of his teammates that won ADCC 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Diogo Reis, another one. Just these short, compact, like hyper athletic young guys. Like I love rolling with people like that. I love competing with people like that when I go to competitions and I'm like, this one's gonna be a fucking grinder. Like
Mhm.
this one's like this is the match where I exhaust myself because there's no other way to do it.
Mhm.
Um, like we're both technical and strong and whatever. Like again, those guys are more technical and more strong than me, everybody. Um, but just like those matches where it's like my grips are burnt out, I'm exhausted, my lungs are screaming, and there's like a minute left, the score is whatever it is, and it's just like I gotta go now, I gotta go now. Like you can feel like the adrenaline activating and just like bursting the all the endorphins just bursting through like every blood vessel. Like those moments, I feel like it takes really good people to like bring that out and
Mm.
people that want to go there. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd also, yeah, just like people that are my size. That's really it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, they could be way better than me, but I like going against like strong people that like are also willing to engage in wrestling, you know,
Yeah.
like,
For our listeners, for reference point, what's your weight category right now?
um, last I checked, it's 170.
Okay. Yeah.
171 checked this morning.
Mhm.
And yeah. Yeah, I'd love to, you know, just train with really good people that are like just do these like athletic things, these like jumping submissions, these crazy that aren't afraid. Like
Yeah.
our gym, we got people of all ages and skill levels and like, you
Yeah.
know, I'm not gonna hit like a Kani Basami on um most people in the gym. Like we got so many injuries and
Yeah.
so many people with like knee issues, and the young guys are like they're really athletic, but they're lower level, and
Yeah.
um,
I think
yeah,
that was listening at the seminar that I went to. That's the first time I've ever seen like high level or like people who that's their whole life. And it was wild just to see like the physical specimen of like how much they've trained their bodies, but then also how they move. Like it was very exciting. And there were a handful at that seminar who are all similar in like size and stature to you. And it is, yeah, just phenomenal to see what comes out of that level of commitment and training and yeah, athleticism, I guess too. But
hmm
yeah.
yeah, yeah. If by some means Mika Galvao hears this, which I'm not calling you out.
I
If
know.
a if a if a miracle happens and the next 3,000 options between me and that person bails and you need me, I will happily walk in there. It'd be like, you know, it'd be like a hockey player getting to play with Wayne Gretzky or something. you know.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, nothing would surprise me at this point.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. I would love to, yeah, potentially do a sequel with you down the road. I know that there's lots more that we could cover.
For sure.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for taking time and joining us. Is there anything else that you want to share to wrap up?
Well, just because I didn't really do an intro at the beginning, maybe just you know,
Yes.
Colton Koopmans. Started and I'm currently running Salt Spring Jiu-Jitsu out here on Salt Spring Island in British Columbia, Canada. Um, it's kind of a travel spot. We got a good market in the summer. Um, if you're ever out here, um, just come on by. Our team is super welcoming. We do lots of great rounds, lots of really good teachers at our gym. Um, yeah, come and train if you're ever out here on the West Coast. And yeah, we're just about to get our new training facility going.
Mhm.
I don't take any ownership over this. One of the teachers is making a big cool space. It's been like her life's work. So we're gonna have a bigger training facility. Hopefully have more visitors, more seminars in the future. Yeah. Uh,
How can people find you if they wanted to reach out to come train on Salt Spring Island, or maybe if they're looking for a fight?
I am accepting all challenges. Um, if you if you want it. No, I we you can reach out to us on Instagram. SSIBJJ is the handle, Salt Spring Jiu-Jitsu. You'll find it. Check us out. And you can also reach out my personal Instagram, Choke Daddy. Um, just how it sounds.
Yeah.
There's layers to that one, player. And
I almost blocked you when you sent me an Instagram message. I was like, who is this person? And I was like, oh wait, I do know him.
I get that.
It's a great.
Um, yeah, hopefully some more content coming out soon in regards to that. Kind of in the process of doing some video work. Yeah, that's it.
Well,
Um,
awesome. I will also just say, if you're listening in and you are traveling in BC, Canada, go to Salt Spring Island, train with Salt Spring Island Jiu-Jitsu. It is, and I might be biased, but it is a phenomenal team. And yeah, incredibly welcoming. You're gonna love it, not just for the jiu-jitsu, but everything else. So don't miss that. Like, it's worth making that part of your travel and trip and destination. And the only way to know what I'm talking about is to just go experience it for yourself. So I'll say that too. Yeah. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. You either were there or you weren't. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Thank you so much, Colton.
yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, hopefully you get back out here sometime soon for more
I'll
training.
always be coming back. Yep. For sure.
Sweet.
Yeah, I
Cool.
appreciate you. Happy birthday to Kaleo, and hello to the family and the team. And thanks for everything that you're doing.
Will do.
Bye.
Bye.